Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fierce Honest Hearts. I'm Heidi, and with me is Fereshta. And we're back. We're here 2 weeks in a row. And I say that simply because I was watching one of our podcasts in the last hour, and I was like, wow, we really do allow, and I want to repeat it again, but that we have this built-in grace for space, for time, for the importance and making our relationship a priority so that, yes, this podcast is a priority and recording it as often as we can is a priority. And it's also more important to both of us to allow whatever we need for each other and ourselves and our lives. So anyway, it was important for me to say that. Let's see. Okay. So my check-in, let's start there, is I've had this momentum of energy and, it's physical energy, it's emotional, it's mental energy. And so I've been pushing myself forward, which feels really good. And I've made some phone calls that I've put off for a little bit. I'm like, okay, you got to get these rolling again, Heidi. Like it's time. And then the other thing that I've been working on, especially today, when I was like, okay, so YouTube, when I upload, there's a little bit of a new format. I'm like, okay, I got to figure that out. And so I uploaded, for those who follow us on YouTube, I have uploaded, I think about 8 videos that had been sitting in my hard drive. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to upload those. So enjoy. And I made the episode that we did about when a friend breaks up with you, a premiere episode. And what I learned, Fereshta, what that is that as people are watching it, they can comment live. As they're watching it, they can make comments. And I'm like, oh, that sounds, yeah. So anyway, and then I also, while I was in our page, in our channel, there were some comments, and I was like, oh, and I have to admit, I don't go there, so I don't see them. And this one had been sitting for a while, and I was like, I responded to this person, and anyway, there were like 3 comments, so I responded and whatnot. But anyway, there they are. And I didn't even start. I did start my check-in. Okay, so that, and I'm feeling more settled in my new environment, my home, because I've got some things on the walls and decorating has started, and that feels good. And I know it's a process, and I'm really working hard to be patient with myself, because I want everything done. I want everything, and I'm like, okay, and this has to happen before that happens. And can you do that on your own, and that kind of thing, So there's a lot of that going on without judgment. I just notice, I'm like, okay, so I can't do everything all at once, but I can do this and I can do this, like I can do certain things. So yeah, just having, speaking of grace, having grace for myself. And I find that I don't do that often. I'm like, yeah, I need to have more grace for me, because I deserve that. I deserve grace. I deserve the grace that I give to others. I need to give to myself. That's really important. So yeah, that's my check-in.
I felt such a big exhale when you talked about grace for yourself. Like my shoulders dropped, and it was like, yeah, we can be hard on ourselves. Right. And then the antidote being just that loving, affectionate grace that you're talking about. So I second that. And it sounds like you are nesting, like you're feathering your nest and getting settled. It's only been like a month?
5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah. And then there's a part that like wants to really fully nest. I get that. Yeah. And then thank you too for just going through all our videos and I love that there are comments. I honestly own I haven't tracked those either, but it's cool to know. And maybe we could set up notifications like that way we know, right? Like that it's happening.
Yeah.
I can't imagine looking through all those videos
Yeah.
all the time. And it feels good when you said the premiering, particularly that episode, because I feel like it resonated with a lot of people. My sense in the relationship field is we talk a lot about breakups as it relates to intimate partnerships. And I don't hear a ton about breakups with friends, and just the impact of that. So I appreciate that we got to do that.
Mm.
And the comments that came in just felt like, oh, this is hitting a nerve for people. Yeah. So my check-in, I think, someone came up on my feed. Two people actually came up on my feed that I don't really stay in touch with. And one, in a similar vein, didn't like that I was expressing care and wanting to show up for them years ago. And one just breached enough integrity that I didn't want to be friends, right? So like just noticing both sides of the coin. But what I noticed with the recent breakup and the one from years ago was, because I can see the other one in hindsight better, right? It's not so fresh. It's like that person did not have capacity for the kind of love I give. And while that's hard to say, it's also comforting, right? To be like, there are just some people who, for all their wanting to have close, lasting, meaningful friendships, aren't going to have the stuff when it's time. And I feel like newly, I don't know, I don't want to say like bruised, but like newly sober to that reminder. Because I think there's a young part of me that like infatuates with people. And it's like, they're the bee's knees. And like, I want to be friends. And it's a young, hopeful, youthful, somewhat naive part. But I also have grace with like, you don't know till something hits the fan, right? Things could seem to be going swimmingly for months, weeks, years, until a real difficulty arises. And under stress, we get to learn who people really are. So that's where I have some grace with myself. It's like, yes, be discerning, but could you have been any more discerning? I don't know. Maybe. And then for me, I feel grateful for like my days right now. I've really prioritized my self-care in the mornings, which I thought I was rocking, right? Like, oh, self-care warrior over here. And the one thing that was missing often was movement, like a real fierce something. And so I've added extra time into my mornings to sweat and to move and to get muscular and to move energy. And it's better for me, for all my cat-like qualities of wanting to just like cozy up under a sun-warmed blanket and have my cup of coffee. There's this other part of me that's like loves shadow boxing and getting sweaty, and like there's this fierce warrior in there too. And just loving on both like the marshmallow in me and the warrior in me, and how they're both present, and maybe not equal measure yet, but the system's getting balanced. So it's not all marshmallow all the time, but there's this balancing happening, which feels really good. Yeah. And it's requiring discipline for me to be like movement first, business second. Like I've got meditation first as a non-negotiable, but that's a habit I built years ago. But movement first is new. And it serves like big time for me. Yeah. And it's allowing me to show reverence for this life and for this body. And yeah, there's something locked in very recently that's like, if I love all the experiences I'm having, I need to love this vessel too. This is the way I get to all those things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you feel checked in?
I do. Yes.
So I'm appreciating the contrast of
Yep.
marshmallow versus whatever that other thing you want to call, right? And finding the balance
Yeah.
so that it works, so it all works for you together.
Mhm.
Um, and that you made a very conscious choice to uptick, to elevate that. It sounds really important. To me, it sounds important, and you shared that it's important to you, and yeah. And then, the other thing that you mentioned was how different the friendship breakup was from years ago to more recent, um and how some people just, I don't know if they don't have the capacity or the space to hold
Mhm.
intense love. um but I've experienced that too. And I actually had a friend of mine in high school, pretty sure it was high school, and my friend said to me, the person, it was so fascinating. The person that you're going to be with will have to be, and I forget how they just kind of like soft without a backbone. And I remember taking it in, and I was processing the words, and I'm thinking to myself, actually, no, that's so not what I want. I want someone who can be my equal as we can be, and have the capacity, because I know how deep, and I know how deep my love is, and I know how big my heart is. And if the person that's with me, who's supposed to be with me, whoever that is, if they can't handle that, that's on them, and I'm going to let them have it. Like, they can have, that's on them, and has nothing to do with me. And so, and I'm aware that not everyone has the capacity to hold it,
Mhm.
and that's okay.
Yeah,
It's
it
okay.
is. It has to be.
It has to be, right, right.
Right.
There's no other way to look at it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also holding, because sometimes capacity can sound like we're poo-pooing someone. I think it could also be like they just don't share that high value for that. Right. I don't share a high value for extreme sports. So
Right.
if I meet someone where that's their number one value, we're probably not going to hang out. So I'm also holding it in this other neutral setting of like, some people do not put high value, it's not in their top 3, top 5
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay. Right. Yeah. It feels healthy to view it this way instead of, I think, the way any of us feel with a breakup,
Mhm.
intimate or friend, that's like, oh, they don't want to be with me. Or, when we start to make it
Yeah,
about ourselves instead of just, there's things that were not in place here, and then the compassion for that too. Because I think what I don't want to do is get into a place where I hate,
right.
or kind of I'm like, F that person, or, all that posturing and all that
Yeah.
armor. To me, it's more like, wow, I still feel like a genuine sadness.
Mhm.
And I have so much compassion that, like, there are times in my life when I wasn't able to hold
Mhm.
someone's true care for me,
Right.
when I didn't think I deserved it, or when I didn't know how to hold that frequency, or when I was just a dumpster fire myself, and, you know, didn't have the skills. Like, I've been all those people,
Mhm.
you know? Um, yeah, it feels different, feels more mature. And I
It-
still have that teenage part that can be like, F that chick, you know? it's still there, but I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, same for sure.
yeah,
And the sting is less stingy.
yeah,
It's less stingy. And I also have this capacity to remember how it felt from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I'm like, that was clearly I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the tools, I wasn't resourced, all of that stuff.
mhm,
And look at how far I've come. Oh my God. Like I feel like I have, journeyed a million miles, and I have in my
yeah,
work. I really have. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so thrilled that I decided to make that priority for myself.
mhm,
Because who would I be? I don't even know who I would be without that, like
yeah.
that. So when I
Without
when
the
I think of
growth,
what's that?
without the growth,
Without the growth.
yeah,
Without the growth, without the maturity, without the ability to feel even deeper. And I kind of smile. I'm like, oh my God, how deep can we go? And I can go really effing deep. Like I know that I can. And so when I remember back to high school, which feels like ago, but when I think back to high school, and I knew that I was different. Like I knew that I felt things deeply, but I don't know. And so when my friend, articulated it in that way, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not, I can't really name it, but it's not that.
mhm,
Like, I know that I don't want someone who's spineless. I want someone who will challenge me, will abide with
yes,
me, has the courage to do that, right? To step up and be like, okay, Heidi, I'm not messing, you're not messing. Let's do this together. Let's figure it out. Because otherwise it's so much work.
mhm,
I've been there. I have been there. It's so much work. And I'm like, this is not fun. It's not fun for me. And if it's not fun for me, there's no way that it can be fun for anyone else. Yeah.
totally,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think what I'm hearing in there for you is like, you want to be called forward, you want to be called out,
On
and
my
you want to be
yes. Yeah.
stepping up in
Yes.
your relationships. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think for me, less than the friendship itself, because I feel like I spent some time grieving that and understanding it. It was more the lack of collaborative repair and consideration. It was like, man, but I fucking know there's another way possible. I do it every day with couples and sisters and all kinds of people. Like there's a place where we can be collaborative and considerate. It happens. People can do it, right? And I'm all for that. And so I think it sounds strange to say this, even as it's coming out of my mouth, it was less grieving the person, although I think that was there. And it was more like grieving a missed opportunity. That it's like, this could have deepened us. This could have brought us closer. This could have helped us learn each other's care instructions. This could have been bonding, right? And deepening. And instead, it's just a throwaway, like, ah, yeah. Because we all want that chance. Like, if we've unknowingly screwed up,
Mhm.
I think we all deserve, in my book anyway, a chance to be held to account and asked for something different and then decide, right? I don't have a well, I should take that back. Maybe I have done that because I'm always looking at like, where have I done that? I have a hard time with who I am now, conceiving of throwing away years and years of a friendship
Mhm.
for one misattunement.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't occur to me. Now, if you asked me 20 years ago, when
Yeah.
I was 23, really,
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I didn't have the skills or the know-how.
Yeah.
But I think it's also that piece, like it's inconceivable to me now.
Yeah.
So when it happens, I forget that, like you tell me, this is not the norm, right? What we do here and how we do friendship and conflict and repair is not the norm. And then I have to go, oh yeah, I have to like zoom out to the 8 billion people in the world instead of my little bubble of highly relational
Right.
warriors,
Yeah.
and go, oh, Heidi's right. What I'm asking for isn't the norm, but it is for me. So that's like the weird juxtaposition.
I hear that. I hear that. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, a question, if I may, like a kind of a not a follow-up, but I'm curious about the breakup, like this with this person.
Mhm.
Did you have any, and I mean even the slightest bit, like inkling that something was awry? Like, did you ever feel intuit, like, this feels off. I'm getting these these messages are saying this. What's like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think that's what set off my anxious attachment, right? Was like things just aren't adding up. And like something happened between us, right? And I'm a big fan of lancing those emotional boils like as quickly as possible, not letting them fester for months,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I asked. Like I was like, hey, I'm just calling to see, like, are we good? Did something go down? Like, is there something I did? Because you're saying you're too busy to have like a 30-minute coffee date, but you're having dinners with other people. And like, so it sounds like maybe it's something that's solely between us. And I got, no, everything's great. We're good. Everything's fine. I'm just busy. So again, I'm like a literal fucking person. If you tell me we're good and you're just busy, I'm going to go, okay, okay, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the tricky part with being so direct as I am is that some people find that really off-putting.
Yeah.
And I get that. Someone's like, well, how dare you call me and question the dinners I'm having? And it's like, well, I'm just trying to understand how you've got time for X, Y, and Z, but I haven't seen you in months. Like that says to me something's off between us. But if I'm told, no, we're good, everything's great,
Right.
you give me nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, in the sense of this doesn't feel good to me, so let me check in. But if someone feeds me a line,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I'm appreciating, and I'm certainly resonating with the like being direct,
yeah,
and someone might, I don't know, feel confronted by that, whatever it is, right? And
yeah.
I also want to add that I too take things literally. Like when someone says
I'm
we're
so
good,
literal. Yeah.
someone says we're good, I'm like, okay, we're good. Like we're good, right?
Well,
Like
I'm trusting that you are grown up enough to tell me the truth.
me too. Yeah. Yeah. So this was fascinating. I was on the phone earlier today, and it was a business kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And I was being asked questions, yes, no, like my name, and anyway, information kind of stuff. And so the person that was asking me these questions, much younger than me, whatever, doesn't matter. And so, and I was being direct in my response, like, yes, no, yeah, right. And there was, sorry, there's a horn. Can you hear that? Okay, good. So there were a couple times when my answer was no, like 3 or 4 times in a row. And at first I sensed it. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep being myself, right? And then this person said to me, I'm just asking the questions on this questionnaire. Like defend it, like kind of like my no
Right.
what. And I said, and I'm just responding to you directly. And that's all I said. I said, I don't want to, and in my head, I'm going, why do I feel like there's a need to explain my no? Like, no, no, and it wasn't even like, do you want to go for it? It was just like, these were literally yes, no answers. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating to me. Yeah. It was just fascinating. And I recently saw a meme or a post where someone said something about, because typically, and this is like, we're not typical, but typically in the world, people are not direct. They come in sideways. Their no is not a clear no.
The crab walking.
Totally. Ooh, that whole thing. The posturing, right? And so when someone is direct, people are like offended.
Yeah.
What is, like, how did we get there? Right?
It's in what you just said. Is like, so many people cushion and couch so much in their day-to-day that's become a normal baseline. And then you have people who just choose to be direct and transparent. I got nothing to prove. I've got nothing to hide. I don't have time. I don't have energy for that. I can't waste extra calories on that. Like, I'm trying to do big things, right? And I think that because it's not the norm, it could be to some people, and it's just their shadows, right? So again, not personal, but it's not a shadow they've owned. Right? We're never like, how dare she be so direct, unless we don't know how to be direct ourselves. Right? How dare she be so lit up? So anything.
Yeah.
Unless it's a disowned part of ourselves. Right? So there's like envy in there, but then there's also resentment, right?
Right.
I mean, I remember going through a psych thing years and years ago, because I'd had a physical injury, and the company I worked with, requested a psych thing. It's like, fine, no problem, let's do it. And this still sticks with me because of the look of horror on the woman, the psychotherapist's face, where number 36 was like, have you ever had suicidal thoughts? And I was like, no. And then I expected number 37 to be, have you ever had any homicidal thoughts?
Oh, sorry. I don't know why that made me laugh, but okay.
I mean, if we're being thorough.
Right.
In a psych eval.
Right.
Should be the next question. Then that's just my ops brain, right? So I said that to her. I said, how come?
Wow.
The next question isn't whether we have homicidal thoughts, because why are we only tracking suicidal thoughts? Right. And she was just like, so, I don't know, freaked out? Because my answer there would have been yes, by the way, at the time. I was so frustrated in my experience, but it was like one of those things, like, this should be normal and allowed to be asked. Like, there's a really important question missing on your psyche now, in my opinion. And I just remember like getting the message again, being direct is off-putting to some people.
Some people.
Some people, my partner loves that I'm not. It actually really makes him feel unsafe if I am crab walking into something. Mm-hmm. He's just like, please just tell me now, because everything else feels threatening.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that one just comes to mind as like, we should be less fragile.
Right.
Or let me actually take that back, because that sounds judgy. We shouldn't treat each other like we're fragile. Because what I know of the human spirit is it's very resilient. And maybe that's just my own care instructions. It's like, don't treat me like I'm delicate. Yes, be considerate, be thoughtful, but be direct.
Mm-hmm. Or how about trust that I can take it?
Thank you. That's better than anything I said.
Trust that I can take it. Trust that
I can handle myself.
Trust that I can take you being forthright with me. Trust that I can take your feedback.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's given in a loving manner that
Mm-hmm.
feels supportive, I will hear it. I will hear it and I will take it in and I'll process it. And I might take it a little bit personally, but chances are I will learn from it
And grow.
and grow. And that to me is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a high value, right? Yeah. I'm with you. I like that. Trust that I can handle it. Trust that I can take it.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens in these kind of situations is someone keeps it to themselves. Either they don't think they can handle delivering it and the discomfort of it, or they don't think the other person on the other end can handle it, and they treat them like they're fragile. And it's like, let's just be kind and clear.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like kindergarten, right? I used to want to be a kindergarten teacher. It's just, can you guys just be clear, kind, considerate, collaborative, right? Collaborative's the big one for me in there too.
Uh-huh.
When like Richard and I go through a rupture, a conflict, we generally sit down and go, how are we going to do that better? Here's what I can own. Here's what he owns. We look at like, how did all of that feed into it getting crunchy? And it's like, oh, I think I could have been softer in my tone. Oh, I think I could have, like when I noticed you were starting to get activated, I could have said, hey, like, have I done something to like have you feeling like I can sense something's happening? I must have done something that's not working for you, right? It's a full collaboration. He's like, oh, I thought you were being defensive, but I remember when you're defensive, it's because you're scared. So I could have said, are you scared? Like there's all these places that we literally go, let's stitch in different things we can try next time.
Yeah.
That we forgot to try this time.
Yeah.
And there's no one leaving anyone. There's just, that didn't work for us. Like very simple. That didn't work for us. What can we do differently? How do I have your back? How do you have my back?
Yeah.
How do we have our back? It feels so clean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And loving. It's like, well, it works for me, but it doesn't work for you. So it doesn't work for us. So what's another? And it's also like, help me out here. What could I do next time to help you feel seen or de-escalate?
Yeah.
We're not crossing our arms being like, figure it out.
Right. Right.
Fuck. You know, I see couples do that. It's like they're testing their, and I'm like, help them out here.
Yeah.
You're a team.
Right. Right.
What will help next time? Tell him. Don't wait for him to guess it under stress. Why would you do that to your person? You know, there's a real, I don't know what the word is. Is epidemic the right word? Of people crossing their arms and trying to test the person across from them. Instead of just throwing them a nugget of like, well, you know what would be super helpful for me next time? This. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Not easy, but simple.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel fired up about this.
I see that, which makes me, I'm like, oh, it's interesting that we have not intentionally avoided the question.
Oh, yes, the question.
Yeah. So the question is, what do I not want to reveal about myself, right?
Sure, what am I afraid to reveal right now?
Okay. So what am I afraid to reveal about myself? In the vein of relationships and breaking off and breaking up and that kind of thing. I have this character flaw. I have this, yeah, I'm going to call it a character flaw where, and it's not all the time, but when I am considering ending a friendship or anything, I have this thing within me where I'm like, and I'm right. Like it's this righteous attitude, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and what I notice, what I'm doing with this righteous attitude is I'm not even considering that they have a side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not considering that they have a side of the street. I'm not considering, I'm just being like, I'm fucking right. Like, I know I'm right, right? So it's so ego based. I'm
Yeah.
like, Heidi, you gotta flip that. Like I realize it's work, it's process, but I'm glad that I at least I'm grateful for the awareness that I have. And it's very humbling for me to even say that because I'm like, I'm not righteous. I want to tell myself, you're not righteous. You're okay. Like, you're good, Heidi. No, like, if I'm going to be really truthful, that's true. Like, I have this righteousness characteristic about me. And I'm like, okay, gotta, yeah. And I will say it shows, I mean, it certainly shows up when I'm in conflict with someone or if I've literally over processed, because I can really over process and overthink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and then I realize like there are times when I feel fortunate that I can sit back and look at it and be like, what's really going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's time for you to look in your little hand mirror, Heidi, and see yourself because this is what's going on. Or if you don't know what's going on, Heidi, let's figure it out. I want to figure that out. Yeah, because that feels much more, I'm going to feel more informed. I will be more informed. It feels more collaborative to me to be in collaboration with myself because otherwise I'm not. And
Right.
I don't know if you've ever thought about being in collaboration with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about it until I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel good, but this is when it, anyway. So I feel like I'm going off on a million tangents, but yeah. Oh,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I relate. So you're not alone. And thank you for just naming that. I think as humans, that can be a good defense mechanism, right? Instead of having to, like you said, look in the mirror, which sounds like you get to anyway, but maybe at first there's like some high horse time.
the highest horse.
Sometimes I sit on a high horse and then eventually I look in the mirror. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that we can laugh about it too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've been thinking about mine, which is sometimes I have a critical narrative about someone based on our history. Right. So let's say just like someone's been flaky or let me down or just been, have their own character flaw. Right. And then if something new happens with them, instead of it being a clean canvas, a new standalone thing, right, where I could actually invite collaboration, I'm just like, oh, see, it's that they're like this.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I call that a critical narrative because it's chronic. It's like I've automated them for decades. And now they've done this little thing. And it's like, see, yep, fits on brand with who they are and the narrative I have of them in my head. There's no collaboration there. And there's actually also a tightness because I can't do anything differently from there. Right? If I am locked into a critical narrative about somebody, I've put a very narrow path of choices in front of me. Whereas if I didn't have that critical narrative, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or we could try this, or like a recent thing that happened. If it had happened with you, I would have been far more curious, far more collaborative, because we've cleaned and repaired as we go, right? But with someone I haven't repaired stuff with, and that I have a critical narrative of, it's like, yep, see, I'm not surprised. no collaboration is available.
Mm,
If anything, I am like, it's a defense mechanism to shut down the hard work of collaboration.
get that. I so get that.
Yeah. And I think there's a self-protective piece to that. Like if someone's got a track record, they've got a track record, right? Like, but that doesn't give them an opportunity or the benefit of the doubt or the generous assumptions I talk about. All generous assumptions are thrown out the window. Have a narrative about who someone is and how they are. And like, there's no room for them to be different. I think that's the cost. If I think I know you and I only expect X from you, you're never even going to be able to try Y. Right? It's a different form of righteousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we go again with this flaky person,
Mhm.
and they might have very valid reasons. Sorry, I was going to say, and they could have very valid reasons for dropping the ball,
Mhm.
but instead it's just like they're flaky.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it does make sense. Yeah. Yeah.
To me, it's just really like watch the critical narratives you have about the long-term people in your life, and then how that doesn't leave room for them to show up differently,
Yeah.
right?
Ugh. Yeah. 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 Hmm. That's a tough one. It's a really tough one. And I'm thinking of a specific relationship that I have that um it's been like an accordion over the years, and um and I would say the most important place that I've gotten to in my relationship with this person is having a lot more, just a birth of empathy and compassion.
Mhm.
Compassion for who they are. And there's no perfection here. I'm not going to claim to be, because I still go, ooh, you did that and you did that thing, and then I'm like, and they're doing the best that they can. They are doing their very best.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one. It really is. So what I want to say add here is that, oh my God, the download's amazing. Okay. So what I want to add is that and I'm going to just use the general word as judgment. So having whatever, when we're judging and we want someone to be different, show up differently or whatever, right? If we can hold more than just the judgment, but also some grace and compassion for that person. And then also for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if I'm judging Joe Schmo over there, I'm judging myself. And if I'm going to have, in my judgment, also hold compassion for that person, I need to do that for myself. So the layers of work here, I will say it really depends on the person. Of course, like you said, like the higher stakes, higher risk relationships are going to be different. Those that aren't are going to be less, and there's still work to do. There's still work to do, no matter where these people are on the scale of, friendship or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate the reminder for more compassion and empathy there, right? Because I also feel like if I ask someone to do something and they say they will and they don't, it might have been a fantasy in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That they've gotten that far in their development to do the thing I've asked them to, right?
Yeah.
So there's also that, like, maybe that wasn't a baby step.
Right.
Maybe that was too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People procrastinate on things that are just past their abilities or overwhelming, or they don't have the skills for, like, all those things. So I appreciate the compassion coming in as an antidote to the narrative.
Oh.
Right. And then, yeah, that bounces right back to us. Like, where have I been like that? Where have I dropped stuff? That's always good work, in my opinion. Right. Because there's stuff in my own psyche that I have to tend to and look at and maybe forgive.
Oh.
And I will say this feels new for me. Instead of trying to like twist someone's arm to do the thing they said they do, there's just like a, okay, like you're showing me where you're at developmentally and in your priorities. And I'm not going to try to convince you or fight you.
Yeah.
Right. That feels different for me. I think my righteousness would have led to like a certain level of hammering it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
And now it's just like, oh, this is the reality.
Uh-huh.
This is the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to add to that and share an example. So, as I shared at the beginning of the podcast, I had not uploaded, I don't know, 8 or 9, many videos, many of our podcasts to YouTube. And you and I had a business meeting a week ago. Yeah, we talked about it. And I shared my experience of it, and you shared and we had similar experiences of different things, but similar experiences. And then you followed up today with an email, I think, today or yesterday.
Yesterday, maybe, yeah.
Very loud siren, sorry. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that thing, and I need to do that thing. That's important. Like, we need to get it uploaded to YouTube. And your email was I was so touched at the way that you addressed, like you came at it with curiosity and compassion. I was like, oh yeah, like there was no energy of defensiveness from, like, I didn't feel like I had to defend. I was like, this feels so clean to me. And so there are a couple of things that I want to say about that. So it made it easy for me to do it. I was like, this is an invite. I'm doing it. I'm going to do it today. I have the energy. And then I realized all the other things that I had put off for, and anyway, so I got a lot done today. So the other thing that I want to say is that, and this is for, of course, the whole I'm like, this is for the audience, but the whole podcast is for the audience. So what I want to say, one of the most important things, characteristics that Fereshta has modeled for me is, even if it's a text, an email, it doesn't matter, to write it in a voice that comes from here. Because I can really be, we talked about directness, I can really be direct and not thoughtful. And so there have been some emails when I'm in, like, okay, and I, thank God, I leave them in my drafts. I'm like, I'm putting it, it's going to go in the draft. It's not meant to go out. I'll work on it, but I needed to get, and I'm like, she models this all the time. She's so good at it, right? And so we talk about modeling here, and I want you to know that you model that for me. And I learn from you all the time, just in the way that you are. And my hope for myself is that I am outputting that into the world. Like, that's what I hope to.
Yeah.
I hope to be doing that. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah.
I'm so touched to hear that. And I think, I'm so glad that was getting conveyed, because email is hard to convey a whole lot of heart in, right? And I so appreciate you for taking that on, right? I mean, sometimes the tasks we take on allow, like for me, for example, to really focus on teaching and getting the new school year off to a good start. So like, you doing that and taking ownership of that has provided me with time to take care of other things. And it's like, I want to be able to appreciate and also hold a flag for, like, and if support's needed.
Yeah.
Like, you're not alone in that.
Right.
Like, we are a team.
Yeah.
And that you also have that very open invitation, that warm invitation that's like, we can tag team.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think sometimes we make agreements and then maybe the agreements don't fit anymore.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was sensitive to that. Like, hey, maybe that's actually a little bit much for one person. Like, let me just also offer support.
Yeah. And that was the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah.
And that was at the bottom of the email. You're like, is there any way that I can support you? And I'm like, I appreciate the question. I'm like, I actually got this. Like, I can do this. I got it. And it's fun. Like, it's fun for me because I get to
I'm
watch,
glad.
I get to see us again. I'm like, so good.
And and I'm also open to like you being like, I think I could do 4 of these, but could you do these other 4? Like, there's like just an open invitation for that too. And because I don't know what your days are like. And if you
Sure.
need, but yeah, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So shall
Let's do it.
we pivot to a deeper question? And I'm going to do a quick shuffle. So this is like maybe not even a tenth of the cards, but anyway, I think they're pretty profound. They're pretty profound and good questions. So, all right. I'll start here.
Okay.
I'll move.
That one.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. If you could travel back in time, what time period would you like to explore and why?
Wow. Wow. I think I romanticize history. So like I'm also aware of like logistical things.
Me too. Me too.
Let's just put it that way. But I guess you don't have to stay there that long. The first thing that comes up for me, and that sounds so bizarre as I'm thinking of it, is like in the time of Cleopatra, but not for like vanity reasons, more from like she had to lead a whole empire. Right. And like it's kind of the ops side, as weird as that sounds. It's like, hey, to measure how much water was in the Nile and like, were they going to have a drought or a harvest? And if they're going to have a drought, they got to start putting extra stuff in the silo for the people. And like all of this big picture thinking for a people, right? That would be kind of cool to see. Yeah. There's a lot of places in history I'd want to go to, but some of them are scary. I was going to be like, oh, with the cavemen. And I was like, I don't know if I want to see that one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a time of a older civilization that was learning how to thrive would be really cool to see. How about you?
So I'm completely enamored with history. I love it. And I also really appreciate and love simplicity and the way that when we want, we can slow ourselves down. We can kind of slow our world down, right? And so I don't know that I would necessarily want to participate in these times, right? But I would like to be, I don't know, like a fly on the wall, just to kind of see how people related in certain situations, in certain time periods. But the one that really, I'm like hell-bent on this, and I really would love for and before social media, before the internet. And what I would want to add to that is before the internet, before social media for sure, and with the knowledge that we have now.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I realize that we might not have the knowledge that we have without it, but if we could have the knowledge that we had and the awareness that we have and the way that we're growing without the other, without compare, like all that crap, I mean, I just feel like we would be eons ahead of ourselves. We would be growing even more, and more connected.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like just it's yeah. Anyway, so
I
yeah,
love that. I love that so much because that's not in the too far distant past,
right.
but it was another world.
Completely. Completely. And you know, Felista, when I think about like even my nieces and nephews do not know, have no inkling, no idea. Anyone in their whatever year was it the 90s when the internet like at when okay.
So yeah.
So anything before whatever, 1990, let's say, anyone born before that or after that has no idea what
Mhm.
life is like without the internet, without, and I'm like, God, I really am deeply grateful that I got to experience the childhood that I got to experience. And and to experience my parents as present as they could be and whatnot, you know, without the other. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a third, right? Like in I don't know, in couples coaching, we often talk about like a gambling addiction could be a third, or a nosy mother-in-law could be
Mhm,
a third,
mhm,
right? I think our technology is a third in our relationships now because I will see mamas with strollers on their
mhm,
technology instead of like playing with their baby. Or, I mean, I remember crossing the street and always holding my parents' hand,
mhm.
like it was a non-negotiable,
Right.
instead of like crossing the street as a 6-year-old, not holding your parents' hand because both their hands are typing something on their phone. It's like, why are you even looking down crossing the street? Like, what is happening? So, even though those were very small moments, they let me know I was cared for,
Yeah.
right? If we were on a road trip, it was just us in the car, singing songs, playing games, staying connected.
Yeah.
Um, I have no idea the echoes of this. I mean, the science is coming out, it's not good,
Right.
right? And I even think of like, you'd have to call your friend's house and you might have to talk to their mom, right? That, like all those little brave muscles,
Yeah.
it's like, I want to talk to my best friend, but I got to call and be like, hi, Mrs. Simmons, how are you? How's everything? Yes, Leah there. Like all of that built social muscles,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
We don't, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, there's benefits and drawbacks. That's all I'll say. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
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 Thanks, friend.
Thank you, friend. Thank you to our audience.
Mm.
We will be off for 2 weeks. So we'll see you sometime in October. And October is our anniversary month. So
Ah,
exciting. Yeah.
I love
So
that.
exciting. And so we'll celebrate a little bit with that and probably have on at least one guest sometime in the month of October. And until next time, my friend, I love you to death. I love you and I adore you and I so appreciate you. And to our audience who follows us, thank you. We appreciate you more than you know. And until next time, mwah.
So
Bye,
much
everyone.
love.